Um, right. So the Humayun Museum recently turned one, and the Heritage Dialogue is a part of the anniversary celebration. This is the second edition, and the dialogues really have a very simple purpose to bring two people with two very different journeys together to talk about Indian heritage as we see it today and tomorrow. That's really it. And the inaugural edition of the Heritage Dialogue was hosted right here a couple of months ago. I think I was telling one of you about it. It was on the Modern Museum of Credence in India with Abhishek Poddar from the Museum of Art and Photography in Bangalore and with Latri Macho's some Biting Heritage and Cycle Center. We came all the way from the border village of Tutuk in Ladakh. That is really a wonderful conversation as well. And today, for the second edition of the Heritage Dialogue, we are absolutely delighted to welcome Humayun. I don't know, I can even make it here and say this, because a true gentleman and a pathfinder in the field of Indian design and Indian textile. Mr. David Abraham, creative director, Abraham and Thakore, and Eva Mallai, founder and creative director of Kiniho, an research label from Vidhoi in Meghalaya, a label that is known for being both Meghalayan and modern. As we stand at the crossroads of cultural dynamism every single day, in that no man's land between heritage and creativity, to define and redefine what is Indian and perhaps what is not, we love to know what their imagination of Indian textiles for tomorrow. And these textiles, of course, are umbilically connected to our memory, our identity, and of course, our creativity over the ages. Also joining the conversation later today will be my friend Varun Rana, a journalist and the creative mind behind several wonderful brands and campaigns, and a true lover of textile, which is why he's really interested to come all day. But before we have a conversation between the three of them, I have requested both the speakers to introduce us to their world, of beauty and grace. And may I first welcome Mr. David Abraham on stage to introduce us to his incredible world of beauty and to the legacy of an absolutely legendary brand, ANC. Mr. Abraham, can we have you on stage? Yeah. It's incredible. And so, yeah. And then I'm busy. We just been to see us there. I think to the thing. Yeah. But I need to the flight and like to do. I don't know, can I win it? Need to go decide and well, good evening, everybody, and thank you for coming. As for it says that 5 evening is a difficult time for most people. But I'm going to talk a little bit about our journey, or my journey as a designer, and illustrating with a few examples of our work to illustrate this particular topic. And I'm going to read out what I've written, what I've talking about. Today, India stands almost alone in holding together the most extraordinary and sophisticated living directory of handmade textile. This is a legacy of complex build and refinement that has been shaped over centuries. We were once the textile workshop of the globe, shipping fine fabric to everyone from the Roman to Arab traders to kingdoms across Southeast Asia. Trade in Indian textiles was much more than mere commerce. It was cultural currency. Remarkably, even in today's hyper-digital time, many of these traditional textiles are still being nursed patiently and skillfully across the country. Interestingly, their survival isn't some accident of nostalgia. It's the result of a sharp and resilient craft community that listens, adapts, and negotiates with a constantly evolving market, and yet somehow manages to retain its essence. At Abraham and Thakore, which is my company, these textile traditions have been key influences that have shaped the way we think, how we design, and how we build modernity out of memory. That's what I'll talk about today. The role of traditional textiles in the evolution of a contemporary design world.
We began as a collaboration between two textile design graduates from the NIB in Ahmedabad, Dr. Safa and myself. We were soon joined by Kevin Midri, one of the earliest graduates for fashion design from NIST. Like most designer startups, we began very modestly in a tiny studio in Delhi with very limited resources and capital. And from the start, we worked with very closely with handle weavers and craft bursaries in the small scale sector. Dyers, printers, and embroiderers and small workshops. Our early collections were very small, carved garments and a handful of hand-woven fabric from Andhra Pradesh and Telangana, from the looms of Mangalagiri and Pottampally. These small, decentralized handloom structures suited us perfectly. Here we could experiment, innovate, and seduce a few pieces of our own design without worrying about the demands of the industrial sector. The alternative option of developing fabrics in the industrial sector would have required us with large investment and invest in large quantity, and we had neither the resources nor the client base. So every fabric lay, every print runs was an experiment, a negotiation between design, craft, and commerce. And now, happily, over 30 years later, we still continue to work with many of the same small workshops that helped us find our voice in the non-sub brand. We have sustained many of these relationships and continue to develop new collections with many of the same craftspersons. Through our journey, we have discovered that India's soft infrastructure, with vast intelligent network of small workshops, is perhaps the best research and development laboratory any textile or fashion designer could hope for. It gave us access to highly skilled makers, allowed us tremendous flexibility, and in turn, it has shaped our language of design. At ANT, the board focus on innovation and exclusivity, and the handloom and craft sector have provided us with the ideal ecosystem to develop products for the discerning customer who values both craft and design. Our design vocabulary has been rooted in the language of Indian textiles ability. Our education at the NID instilled in us a deep respect for material, process, and content. And as our works evolved, so did our engagement with several craft clubs. From the Isad weavers of Pochampally in Telangana to weavers from Maheshwar, block printers across Rajasthan to Bandari artisans from Mandi. Street collaboration with each of these sectors have added to our vocabulary, and we draw inspiration from traditions to find ways to express our concept in a contemporary way. Our aesthetic has always leaned towards the minimal, by reducing, distilling, and simplifying, yet focusing on the essence of a particular textile technique. Through the exploration of material and construction technique, we constantly search for ways to reframe and recontextualize traditional ways of depiction in our design. Sometimes it involves the deconstructing traditional patterns and motifs to find the basic building blocks of a pattern. In others, it may take the form of a yarn substitution, as in the case of our recent development using stencil yarn with the double-leafed weavers of Pochampally to primarily work in cotton and silk. Or we may look at a specific tool in textile knitting and search for another way to use it, as in the case of our work with the wood blocks used in block printing. I have some illustrations which I'll show you. In the following images, each collection has been an exploration of this balance between the traditional and the modern, the complex and the simple, between the tailored and the gray. We have searched for ways to create designs that speak to a modern sensibility, yet all the while drawing from a traditional vocabulary. I'll start with the first ikat. Ikat is an area that we have done a lot of work with, and it is an extremely complex form of weaving where the motifs are created through the geometric precise tying and dyeing of yarns before the weaving process. This has been an important area of exploration for us, and we have worked closely with specific weavers in Sutapaka for over 30 years now, developing patterns that highlight the precise engineering that is required to create motifs through resist dyeing. We have explored ways to manipulate pattern repeat, and as mentioned, we've also experimented with yarn substitution, such as in the recent experiment introducing textile yarn to enhance the breathability of the fabric. I'll show you more examples, usually very early, where we just work the horizontal lines, just lays it repeat. This is a recent double recut which has been done using terraform in both the warp and the wear. So to say, so instead of using cotton and church, you use terraform. This is a highly sustainable form of zip code and had excellent drapes. In 2011, we did a collection that was an examination of gender and clothing. And then for the collection, we designed this black ivory and chartreuse double ikat sari that's played on the classic houndstooth set, which are traditionally associated with menswear shrinkage. This piece now resides in the permanent design selection of the Victoria and Albert Museum in London. This is another example of a double recut where we have played with forms derived from calligraphy in different languages and also plays with repeat because our repeats are very large. We try to always extend the repeat as far as we can. Here's another example of working with a slice and check, but again playing with repeat. This again, a collector home textiles that was developed for, I think, the convents of London. More examples of double recut, both in the cotton on the top and pure silk on the left. Again, from the same needles. The one in the left is taken from color blocky, taken from Roscoe painting. Here's an example of a cut that we developed with, in the repeat, as you can see, this garment is an ancillate garment. So first at the 3 inches, the pattern doesn't repeat at all. So this is where we try to push the boundaries continuously with our weavers, like giving them graft and by trying to extend. It's not even a lot of complaint, but then eventually you always get there. And, but and it worked. So we did Zen the bees also, and so can be a commercially successful bees design. The one on the key right is the same pattern that was developed for a starting. And I just took the walk and sent it to London. So there was an exhibition in London on I think the modern sarees was stores. So I think this was the one that they put up in the museum. And then, of course, the guy in the circle is weaving this black and white one. Okay, so now I'll come to the next textile cluster that we was with. It was Mallai, as you know. And that's a very simple weave, it's a plain weave, and some Andhra. And that has become a very important part of our collection. Traditionally woven with contrast borders, these textiles inspired us to use this traffic layout in new ways. For some of our developing, we had to change the construction of the fabric to better suit the stresses of stitched garment, as opposed to the traditional weaves which are more suited to the unstitched garment. I think you're all aware that hand-woven fabric can be very slippery and they can tear easily. So Mallai, for example, which is the classic plain weave, had to be reinforced so that you don't get seam slippage and that the garments don't tear at the seam. So those are the interventions. So it's not necessarily the obvious design, but the intervention could be in the texture by changing the weave, changing the yarn. And here are examples. This was a collection that was done, funnily enough, for Switzerland Globus from Zika. With Mallai by using indigo. Here again, this is, we work with the dhotis, we work with saris, and we see how we can incorporate that into clothing. As I said, we change the construction of the fabrics to suit the stretcher of the garment. And we also acknowledge the dhoti and the sari as inspiration and borrow from both Indian and Western silhouette, while size remain contemporary. These are further examples of Mallai borders and embroidery pattern on the handing to the modern fashion. Okay, now I come to the next one, brocade. Brocade is an area that we was with. The weaving traditions of Varanasi have been very inspiring for many of us in history. We have always attempted to push the limits of hand weaving. There's an example here of a leopard print sari, this one, in which the pattern motifs do not repeat as all over the entire 5.5 meter length of the sari. So we had to create a graph that is 5.5 meters long. And we said, yes, the pattern. And what is also interesting was it was a combination of tuckers in the ground and mulberry for the black. So we were also trying to play with the two yarns. So, and then I'll go back. I think here we was then we did several collections in which we placed the actual patterns are created by the creation of the woven structures, the warp overlap, how the thread intertwine. This is why we created these sort of basketries designed based on, I mean, I think this is a bit nerdy, but I think textile people know tabby structure, prayer structure. But then it's like, and of course, this is the calligraphy which was from the earlier selection, which this is the same thing. This is another one, and this also went, I think, have gone into the VNA, into the permit after it. And this is tougher silk, and we're playing with the with that motif, which is the classic temple motif, and made it in the form itself. So we were playing with that, or weaving a structural weaving thing as a design element. And again, playing with tougher silk. This was actually also done in Banaras with the brocade user. One thing that we discovered is that he realized that still the handle weaver handle all these unconventional ideas on a traditional dome. It is elegant. It's really something that you're extremely grateful for. I mean, could not have done this anywhere else. So he's saying, and he's also laid up the topic of handloom and saying, like, it's just the greatest resource that we have, especially for a designer. The other area that he was tourist was block printing, which is of course very common. But as you can see, it's made with the tea. Like that is not a patchwork skirt, but it is block printed in those patterns. It's only something you can only do when you're printing with a block printer, because every block can be different. It can be, I think the image on the right, you can see the outline of a garment and how the block can just be placed randomly all over. So we should plan. So therefore, we use the fact that every block is individually placed with a piece of fabric. So then you can really sort of manipulate it. Then we did some experiments. This is another experience. Did the authors just use the block, but not have any carving on it, because the block usually have carving. So there's no motif. But just the square of the block is centered continuously to create this sort of texture. And it sort of creates a very interesting texture, and you can see the repeat of few square, but it's actually a plane. And so the jacket that we worn on the neck is actually printed in this diagonal. And the block print is just create surfaces of tunnel without any ornamental form. So this is something that we did. This is, we know the tunnel, and this is very sort of commercial, but you can see that because of the block print and the amount of tunnels, you could print the entire bed cover without repeat. That is necessary. And that's only something again here. So you need your print of drops of water and then combine that with embroidery. So giving us the freedom to work which we didn't do. And this is then just block printed. This belongs to the strike. So like an all over pattern. And the irregularity of the hand block is actually a crucial part of the design. And besides to accentuate that. So the teachers show the imperfection, because that is actually a part of that is the design. This is another example. Very, very large block, and it's completely random. So you have to work out a sort of tracing. The block tensor knows that as he moves across the garment at the start and the top, every part has a different pattern thinking in it. And then we come to the last point, Kansa, with of course from Bengal, which everybody knows, which is the original recycled fabric, where old worn-out saris were layered and crucified by hand into new textile. And this was about sustainability much before the term became a fashionable buzzword. Now, we still have reimagined this practice by combining both hand and machine quilting to create fabric for garment. And these fabrics are a combination of factory offcut from our own factory and materials sourced from the vendors of waste and reject fabric stocks. So you go to the commodities and you can pick up all the fabric, and then you create new fabrics to that. And you use both the machine and the hand. And this is just like a comment on, waste and reuse. And we've done several selections in that. We have, as you can see, this is another one in which we're based on the sphere hide, bits of fabric that we just patched together and it comes out and hands together. This is on the hanging and on the bed cover, you can see these are patches of fabric together. This is a home collection. This is another one. There's a suede carton. Let's layer fabrics together using the running strip, which inspired a lot of our work. This is just a man's face, which is completely hand stitched together. And the start is just like using that idea, the running strip, not to hold fabric together, but as a source of decoration. And here's a garment where while we were exploring waste and reuse, this is a very old tradition of ours, we bought a lot of hospital waste extras from the hospital that had been discarded, and had the X-rays cut into the sequin. And then we applicate those sequins onto the stanta garments using a long hand stitch. So because that was also a comment on this recycling and it. There's a center fund. Yeah, she's metal. At least yes, we have some things in the shop right now this user. So we return to the estate every so often. So that's it. And this is another one. Is that actually this is that close up of the garment, this the fabric that are joined together of cut from sleeves and from cuffs and all that, which is then patched together and put into this garment. And that's it. So I just sum it up. The core of our design process is an inquiry into materiality. How fabric, technique, and concept have come together to form meaning and shape. Throughout the craft is actually often the starting point of design thinking. Our designs serve as a platform to reinterpret craft tradition as an evolving language. So in that sense, every collection, though it's always looking forward, is actually rooted in a tradition in the craft. So that's it. Nothing more to say. But now I come down and how much thought goes into each garment and how you reimagine, recreated using not just jeans or yarn or material, but also tea. It is, I'm sorry, I'm not from a textile background, so the sort of this for me was very, very revelatory. So thank you so much for sharing your journey with us and also for showing us some fabulous examples of how Indian textiles can be worn and reimagined differently in a way that they don't lose their soul. And yet, remind us of our past. Because the past and the future come together beautifully. Thank you so much. Thanks, Dave. And now, may I please invite on stage Iba Malai, who I'm very thankful to because she has made a long journey from Shillong. And she has not slept a wink all of last night. I'm very, very grateful to her. And the reason that, I'm excited also to invite her here for this conversation today because she's one of the people that I've known now for a while who've gone back to their roots and has chosen to go back to to their home states and revive and bring back weave in their own backyard. So that's a journey that also is very, very interesting. And I find that the more I travel, the more I meet people who are inspired by the journey of people like Iba and saw others in Ceylon today and in Suda and wherever else in Meghalaya and Assam have heard of Kiniho are probably planning to do or taking the plunge into their journey as an entrepreneur because you managed to do it. So thank you so much, Eva. Please come up on stage and tell us a little bit about your journey. Thank you so much for inviting Soiti. Um, I hesitate for a bit when she informed me that the other speaker is the Abraham, obviously. But then thank you so much for this opportunity to share my journey. And I feel so humble, so grateful for this platform to be shared with. So, right? Can my presentation is not going to be like
So it's going to be more of what I am and how my journey has been with Kiniho. So he will just dive into that direction. Since many of you don't know about Kiniho, I think it's better to study. So it's not right. So maybe I think it's a bit late here. So I am from Meghalaya, and the brand that I run now, the name of it is Kiniho. Kiniho, we are the one. It is extracted from Hawaii, the communities that I was raised in, born, the community that I came from. It is a way of expressing to someone who doesn't feel what's already there in front of them. Kiniho, right? So I came up with the name because when I started the brand, I was not sure what kind of fabric I would use. I started when I was in Bangalore. I was far away from home. I was more data. And so I started with other nicer fabric like Kalampari, Block 20, but then that did not support the voice and mission that I had for the brand. So it was through my mom's persistent phone call persuading me to come back home that made me realize that the fiber that I could work with is this thing. And I was born and raised in that village, and I that it didn't, like, it did not click. I did not realize that this is the fiber that I could work. So it was through my mom, thanks to her, that made me realize that this is one of the fiber that I could work with. This is our main fiber in our work research, right? So as a brand, we try to use the traditional uh, craftsmanship, the technique of our local weavers, blending them into contemporary aesthetic. So our mission is to create responsibility by making sure each surface evolves in creating our designs are socially and environmentally friendly to create responsibly by honoring and preserving the heritage craft of Meghalaya, which is Erisa Kantiru, by empowering its local artisans and by crafting eco-friendly textiles that honor both the people and the planet. Right? So we have our own production unit. We started with one, and when we started, we had the TV with us, and now over 25, and we have another on the production unit, with the ability to integrate it in this week. We work exclusively with a research, since this is one of our indigenous sectors. And I'm sure most of you already know what is a research. It's also called a non-violent skill. It is very rooted to the community where I came from, right? It is a voice community. And I was born and raised in this village, then so we have been having this heritage handling since many years for generations. So it is very rooted to the community. They have been practicing this heritage handling. And it is appalling for me to come back home when I had that phone call with my mom, and I realized this is the that we should work with. And we focus only use mostly with natural dye, use for the courtesy dye cut in small batches, using local ingredients like lead, iron ores, bark of a tree, called white lumber cat, shipping cassie, and sawtooth. These are some of the names of the leaves and the barks that you use to be shade. And we are committed to work only with our local weavers, and most of them are dropped out students, uh, single mother, and uninitiated. So to talk a bit about my journey, how I started, I was far away from home and I was not happy with what I was seeing. I was trying to find that then of millennials. I was trying to find that joy, that passion, in what I do, but I was not because I was living far away from home for many years because of my studies, education studies, and work. I was working in a corporate world in India, Bangalore, for 8 years. And I felt stuck. I was not happy at all with what I was doing. This was the moment I realized that I could stop looking for that spark that had been there inside of you, um, to do something meaningful, to do something better. So I decided to pursue a fashion designing course with the Institute in Bangalore. After completion, I decided to start my own brand, a Kiniho. And at the very beginning, I realized I know exactly what I want to do, and that is to create a business that benefit not me alone but also my fellow readers, right? I want the gift to have a purpose and meaning, right? I want it to be a reconnection with my root, going back to my root because I was far away from home, and at that time I didn't think that I will go back home as I work in Bangalore. I thought that I would be in Bangalore for years, right? But um, yes, so I decided that this business, when I was in Bangalore, I decided it to be a kind of a reconnection, like a big going back to my root. So that's how I started, and these are the key points why I start Cleaning Home in 2016, and so it has been a journey, and I decided to leave my quit my job and came back home for good. And the past 3 years was very difficult for me. Um, to start your own business without proper um, uh, capital investments or the proper plan. But then the passion that drives me, the joy that I find in do what I do, that itself puts me forward to where I am now. Yes. So that's my journey with Perito and how I started my Kiniho again. Yeah. And so why we choose aerospace, like I mentioned earlier, uh, when I started the brand, I wanted to be meaningful and it had a purpose. I want to reconnect back with my roots. And this has a very strong essence and it really connects with what I want to do with the brand. And Aristotle, hand reading and hearing has been a practice since in this since generations in the community. My grandmother, she was a reader, and my auntie, who is my mom's elder sister, he learned the craft of weaving from my grandmother. I recall a conversation that I had with her few weeks ago when she mentioned that she would look at her mom weaving, and then one fine day when her mom left the house, she decided to try how to weave, and then he goes to learn how to knit. And also my other auntie, who is my mom's elder sister, she is also a weaver, a master, a weaver and dyer, and she learned this craft from her. So it's passing on from generation to generation until now. Um, and also my auntie, she is also the person who looked after Kiniho production unit, who trains and distributed. So and also areas here in the community, they don't take this as a job. They would pay the young while they go to their traditional for giving it a time. So it is not a job for them. It's a way of life, right? So it has been there in the community. It's very rooted in the community. And this is the reason I felt strongly. I mean, the drive is there to work with Airtel. And apart from that, as you all know, that Airtel is also called a non-binary faith. And it has these unique thermal properties as it is cooling, unique and warm in summer days. Um, so these are the main reasons why I want to focus only working with aerosols, because it belongs to the community. It is very related to them, and this is our way of preserving our identity, our character, to do our tradition alive. Because I don't do that. If I just choose other fabrics, other fiber, that not suffice, right? So this is the reason. And to talk a little bit about where I come from, about Meghalaya. Meghalaya, we have the main inhabitants of Meghalaya are the Daidya, the Khasi, and the Daro. And we have subtribes like the Phoi, the Wan, Kairin, and Naz, right? So these women that you can see here, they are all in the traditional Zaya. And here you see these kind of attire during dance activities. These are from different subtypes of Meghalaya, and they are all Hungarian, as you can see. Most of them are also aerosols and some in cotton. And also, the men during the rituals, certain rituals, they do have to wear the Hungarian turban for some rituals. So, uh, this, the value of Hungarian fabric is there in the community. And also Meghalaya, we are very close to nature. We often have a celebrating to to celebrate nature, to work with nature, to digitize the nature. We have one kind of festival called Sadem, which they celebrate in Hoi, where they did how to Nuku. Nukuni is a rice deity, and they consider the rice deity Nukuni as the provider of life, right? So we have this kind of dance festival to celebrate nature, to digitize nature. Another ritual that the Boy community do is also when they perform a prayer to the uh, lightning god Ilkati. Um, and they do pour in front of a tree called a white lampas hut, which we also use the bark of that tree, we use it for dyeing. Um, so they do it. They created the god to protect its people from the, from the harmful environment for the coming year. So this is about Meghalaya and how close we are to nature. And here are some of the patterns and the motifs of Meghalaya. And each of them has their own meaning, their own history and rituals too. So I would didn't go through recently, right? I will didn't go through these for some of them and the meaning. Like the first one, this one here. This is an embroidery form called clay embroidery. It's done on any silk doll. And this clay embroidery is a very oldest form of embroidery. It's the only known form of embroidery in Meghalaya, and it's a dye art form with only 8 artisans left. Uh, the shape as you can see is inspired from centipede. So traditionally they would store centipede. People, some part of the community in Meghalaya, they store it in bamboo because they consider it to be to protect the household members from evil from evil. So they consider centipede to be it is as a symbol of protection to protect the family from harmful consequences. And yeah, so as you can see, it is like sensitive, right? Yeah. Um, so that is about the clay embroidery. It is usually adorned on an aristal shawl on the edges, and this way like, is on to thin. And the next one is this the white fabric. You can see the cord. It's called Pintai Taxi. Most of the coffee shop, not most, all of the coffee shop, you'll find this line, the P coding. Kentang means black coffee. And again, this acts as a protection from the owner of the fabric who wears it from either eye. And the next one there is from the Kat Nindo. It's called Kmat Nindo. Kmat means eye. Nindo means the eye of a priest. So again, that acts as um, uh, protection. Like it acts as a symbol of protection to the community, a priest watching an eye situation over the community. Uh, like like that, we have very various smart called smart long standing means eye of an elder, but belong to me it means eye of Buri. There is a bridge in the community. So all these talked about the intercultural influences in the community. It talked about the history in the community. So it has feeling. And the top farm is where is like a barracks. It has a lot of the diamond in it, and they wear it during the festival. And the last one top bar here starting in the very Sunday, right? But this is top bar means starting. This has huge significance in the history of Meghalaya. Reminders during the British time. Uh, and how it came, how we got inspired this. If you come to Shillong, if you go to the G market or the village, you would find most of them during winter time, they will wear these kind of patterns. It may not be India, it may not be Eritrea, but it's a woolen kind of pattern for the shawl that they did wear, right? It is very close to their heart, and it is believed that during the British time, when the Welsh missionary came to Ceylon, they are the one who brought uh, these tartan shawl, and it is believed that they send us gift to the king in the Cartagena. And so the Aristotle, weavers got inspired by these kind of patterns, and they started weaving the Troba Aristotle shawl, right? So they think about some of the textiles in Meghalaya, and I don't have much, like I mentioned earlier, what of our work features here, but I have a little bit of the praying that he do, and how he got inspired, and how we try to use traditional techniques and craftsmanship in our work. Like this first time, the first picture here, it on its all, it nail embroidery. Actually, like I mentioned earlier, here the clay usually looks like this, right? Typically, it looks like this. But what we have done in our, one of the collections, inspired by a Thati cocktail, is we have given them motif, and then we have asked them to use the cane, filling the motif, right? So this is the kind of work that we do, and we also do a lot of Dyson, traditional wear, like what I'm wearing right now. So traditionally, Dyson, you find geometrical things, like the motifs are all tentative. But what you do is trying to take inspiration from nature, from our folk tales. Again, another one in purple, it's from a folk tale about the sun and the peacock who fall in love, right? One the thing is sunny. So we trying to get that, creating, taking those key elements and use them in our design. And the middle section where you see the web making, the painting, that is also inspirating, that he takes from the traditional wooden bag, that the community has been doing, and in their bags, wooden bags. So we put it incorporate in our design. So these are some of the, and most of the images that I have put here are all inspired by folk tales. So we do a lot of that. So we try to, reinvent, you know, uh, the cocktails in our design. And yes, these are another key design that I have. Just to have a glimpse of the aesthetic of what you did. Um, and For us, this is very important. The like I very clearly mentioned earlier, the social impact, the full journey that we want to help as a brand. So for us, it has been so great to be working with our community leaders because we not only get to support them, but also we could revive this culture because once upon a time, back in like 2 years ago, when I started, it was almost dying, the traditional reading. But the artists don't get a good platform to tell the souls, the mufflers. So and we are very proud in doing what you did because we could help them revive this culture. We could support their livelihood, and at the same time, we could also, preserve this heritage craft of Meghalaya. So, yes, so this is what we feel that as a brand that state uh, of traditional knowledge must be passed on, and our identity should not be dying, right? Should not fade away because today traditions, today's culture is how we represent ourselves, and this talks about our identity. And yeah, so the future lies in holding on to where we come from. It all depends on us. We all hold that responsibilities. So I hope we all do today here, all of you, uh, to have this responsibility in your heart as we go forward. Can no matter if you are a creator or not a creator, but we all hold that responsibility to preserve our culture, to preserve our identities, because that's the pride of India. Thank you. Yes, we do work just with areas, right? Stated in areas, like only the I want the down to obviously work physically a little, but yeah. And that's not to do with aerosol. We love exploring textures and different kinds of pattern. So we are going to focus. Our main fighter would be just aerosol. I would say even in the future, you may want to expand incorporation. If you have started doing it with costing and going, and it has a decent feel. It has the very soft. It's already soft. Everything is already soft, but also when you combine it, it makes this very different feel of soft. It's very nice thing. So yeah, in the future, of course, you will incorporate it with other fiber, but we are not going to dilute the activity of mercury roles with early silk. So I would say maybe 90% will it be illustrated and maybe 10% it can be the other fiber.
I will ask you in what way today. You also informed us earlier that the weaving has been done on a nail.
Oh no,
On a machine.
I'm moving. No, I'm not
Also,
it's not a high spun yarn. So yes, it's a hand woven fabric,
awesome.
but it's a machine spun. The yarn is a
Yarn.
spun. Yeah, so that's why you get
The texture, yeah, got it. Got it. Okay. There is quite an interpretation of saying. And community, I really are relating. Do you ever have to actually keep your electric on a sex side limited to the game of band identity or club left into the earth? Actually not really, because I changed, I mean, what I saw this today represent a part of our world, and you're staying sort of agnostic in, it depends on the context. So there was a digital concept, and you want to work at the picture area, and this is what we work with handloom and not with handloom and craft. It doesn't mean to say that you only work with handloom and craft. You do also work with about fitted and not fitted fabric. And so it depends on the knit in the collection. Sometimes you do need to have, industrial fabrics, and then we need to have, it depends really on the product and on the content. So the place sort of like I said, just technology is not yeah. It is agnostic. Yeah. But craft, maybe, and in India, it is in textile craft have informed design language is very good. So in a sense, it's really good. And also because you can do such extraordinary things, because I think that it really covers a whole gamut of practically every textile making technique is available in the textile. You're right. Right. So it does answer a lot of the needs, but you do sometimes miss you work with other areas to them. I think one of the areas that a lot of designers in the textile sector kind of maybe not, they don't face it on an everyday basis is that when you're working with textiles, most handwoven textiles were designed and meant to be worn in great or in great certainly great style. What's interesting to me for in the work of the what ENTM from about what is that they're designing for a human body. Uh, I want to put that into your neck. Speaking of the first textiles, because it existed for centuries in some places, but now you're having to present them as something that can be worn by an individual. How do you kind of balance that in your design process?
How we can get the right design.
Yeah.
So when I started this small account, when I started, back then I wasn't buying all like a nation. Um, I don't get any fabric of every sort from measurement. Some like I was fun and very fair, where my mom made, and they would only give me sauce and muffler. And how will I want to make clothing. How can I create like an apparel objects or a basket out of sauce, like very small. So that is one of the reasons why I want to start my own unit, and I decided to start my own unit, production unit, and started with TVs, and that's how we started. We our own fabric. Started eating all coffees at the community weavers, and that's how it started. And the rest is trying to yes, we wanted to keep it, but we also want to reach globally. So we obviously have to contemporize our design. Like I told earlier, those are the kind of batteries traditionally, right? Traditional batteries that you want to lift the modern consumers. And so, and also one of the reasons is also in order for us to preserve to carry on the tradition, we have to be contemporary. Yeah. So for us, that's the main purpose, so that we can keep on reviving on his discovery the stars and his body to do on his supported the senior guys. And so that's how we trying to come up with new experiences every now and then. You have a lot of stories if you go to Kiniho face. I mean, like you have number of followers in Instagram that yeah, we keep on telling our stories about and things. So that's how we do. And that's how we try to educate, bring awareness, and connect with them younger generations through our stories. And that base also in our textile pages.
I think the point that you brought us is actually quite interesting because I think the biggest challenge in traditionally most traditional Indian textiles and with this fault is that they have been developed over centuries for this garment currently. So very little was cut and sewn. So the structure of, and we worked with weavers who traditionally woven sari, dhoti, angavastras, where the distribution of the thread, just to being a little technical, the distribution of the threads between the warp and the weft is almost equal. So the fabric has a malleability. It can slide as it would. So like, when you wrap the sari around you, the grain, the warp goes this way here, and it goes diagonally at the back, and then it's crossed. So in the place, the fabric has to glitch as it goes around the body, which is the reason why handloom fabric are such a duster. Now, when you start touching a stitching them, they obviously don't. Listen, I think you must understand about this, Sheila. If you have pants that are made from handmade fabric, they bag at the knees, the seam, your seam stitching on the armholes. Now, these are all technical issues. He tries to confront them by, he accepts the fact that now a lot of handloom fabric is not, no, despite fabric is still very important. A lot of handloom fabric that is used to use, you'll go into made up. You have to cut into. So because we're doing that, why interventions then are always in the case of the structure of the structure on the loom. When you take what is called technically the reed, so you can bring the warp and best the warp and more than directly. So you make a stronger warp and a neck and a more lighter end. So then that can take the stress so you can cut along the grain. So these are things that I think are very important in the development of the handling textile when you start by using them for multiple products. Again, very interesting. If I take the last point that Eva said about the younger generation, and then we sort of talk about what you said about changing the structure of the region trade, right? Then that kind of begs the question, like, how important is, let's say, the generational transfer of these skills as opposed to a more a different kind of control, which could be access to like the study and intention, and you can bring in a viewer who is not maybe born in that area or born to that craft, but they have an aptitude to learn it, or even or a body of viewers that can actually increase production, rather than saying no, that this craft can only be practiced by, let's say, this particular community or this particular village or this particular district, as it I think generally mostly is. So where do you stand on that, and especially,
Well, that is not the case with us. I mean, most of the girls in the family, in the community, in the mental area, and the village is called in the Umdan area, most of the girls know how to be. They like it when they're failing. For an example,
are they still learning? Having people like
so
the work you now let go?
so there are most of them they are educated. They go to college, they go to school,
Correct, yeah.
so they come back home and then they have the mom, right? So that is the practice is there, but few years ago that practice it was always dying. Um, I think mostly because of the market, there is no platform. Also, the mothers would stop using and then they consider, sending their kids to the big cities for studies.
Yeah.
But as part of what we do, we also, most of them will come and work with us. They are also trained. So we train them, we retrain them. And also, for some of the content design that we do, we have to sit with them and train them how to do it. We also provide training. So in our new production unit, you see a way to integrate it today. We are going to conduct lots of trainings to this young very safe home unemployed youth.
That's an interesting. David? Yeah, I think your question is about retaining the crop within a certain cohort only, or do we grow the traditional thing? Yeah. And then what do you lose by expanding the number like this? And do you lose anything with the don't go? Yeah, because it was, if you look historically back at as I just feel the start to this country, we were the largest user of Australia in the world. And then it is recorded historically. And he supplied textiles and it from to Europe, to the Far East, to Africa, the leaves that are the flowers woven in Madras text. Those all went into Africa. So historically, winters on the Coromandel coast, the Philippines, pincers for Europe, for the Dutch. Yeah. The Ikat weavers were weaving for Indonesia and for, and making batik also about the year. Historically, the Indian craft persevered with its Indian and in willing to engage, they pay that. They're the makers and they pay that. Somebody comes in with a series of patterns, they risk, I mean, I remember when I'm looking at some of the early films that have been done in along the coast, the called Manchester service, that is called. This is Thakore, the little dustman walking around. And you see that these patterns are coming from the pattern book. Taken from your, they have no, I mean, they added it and it brought their ingenuity and their aesthetic skills to it. It made the textiles and its own then. This is what they thought of. Now, that flexibility is within the thing. And right now we're seeing it because the market is filled. You don't export to those markets anymore. Our market is now largely internal, it's domestic, and it's a new consumer. You have a very large new middle class consumer who's buying handmade goods. So the language of the design has changed again. And the very fact that you need to adapt to that is a sign of something. As you feel, I'm not reading to my last question, and then you open it up to the audience. And I know you do it. I want to hear from you, Doffer. Is there anything that you do that you do only because you want to do it to make things more fun in terms of design? Something that it could be a work of design, could be a silhouette that's not, maybe going to traditionally be accepted, but you do it because creatively you want to do it. Something that could be a sort of a design wink and a nod to somebody who can really understand it. Some hidden details. Is that something that figures in your design process?
Like in terms of silhouette?
Could be silhouette, could be a dress, could be a material, could be a little, I don't know, a little carbon bone somewhere hidden in the lining. You don't know. I mean, is there something that you hide as an element of fun, or is it even a thought process that sort of informs your design process?
Mm, I think I have come across that. But in terms of silhouettes, I do see a lot. Not in terms of singing. Yes, I did play a lot in using that, something that's obviously like that they don't sing.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you tend to do a lot of mistakes again when using, right? So trying to help them and trying to the idea that answer the question, trying to hide the mistake, turning them into designs. I have done that. Yes, yes.
Yeah, God wants to forgive this. Yeah. And that I'm very excited by EMT and it's covered with ants. So I mean, I think that I really like the idea of the little cricket. Yeah, I mean, they can sort of digging and other stuff, because I think like really fun, right? Like a versus, feeling a little bit, for fun at something. Correct. Okay, to be open up the audience, do they really have any questions? Let me come to you. Oh, there's something. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, good evening, everyone. I'm Ayushi Neman, and I'm Natin Indian today in Meghalaya. So my question is to both of you. Are you both are working in community? You're dealing with a community people who are staff CEOs or working in something working to generation. And now you're including some new elements in storage circles. Uh, you're including some new elements to the viewer. So how is this facing any challenges to the viewer? Is there something is something issue or is something problem you're taking with the viewer? Are they including some new elements?
Mhm. Can you hear me? Yeah. I think your question is very asked because I think in many cases there's a lot of resistance because, a lot of time people used to do what they do. And it's a bit of a job to sort of make people turn. And for example, then we visited the new development using central yarn with the Easter weavers. That particular set of weavers are very used to working with cotton and tape. So they were unsure how people we brought the yarn in from Lending, which is a Austrian company which makes just the is responsible for stencil yarn. So they were very unsure about the dyeing and what dyes did he use? What did he dye this? How much dye did we put into the bath? How will the color be far? So there was a resistance. But we were fortunate because one of our team members, designer, actually went and sat at the 2 or 3 months and talked them through the process. And then once they realized that they could do it and that it worked, then it kind of, but then it's always a bit of a journey. Then you want to change things. And I could keep doing nodding and head for what much more closely to class people than we do. But it's always that you got to thought. But then but what you find, once it's crossed that, the initial resistance, everything is good to go. Yeah? Data.
Yes, you always did the quick thing and encourage them that they could do it. Only the different is like with my community people within the unit, they are very on with me. Whatever I ask them to do, whatever I ask them to create, they are very excited to learn new tools. E-texture, if I just show them the design, they will just try on their own without me telling them how to do it. So they are very excited. In terms of demand, obviously the big deal, but in terms of exploring, they are very much with me. But I think this issue with the me and the community, Bibi went with me and she also has asked you this question that it is for them, clay and void, usually adorn like, on the edge of the soul, and I asked them to do it throughout the body of the soul, pinning those techniques in the motif. They hesitate to do it. Most of the artisans hesitate to do it. But we just, again, like Gus said, we have to encourage them, telling them that see the master is big, not only the traditional role. So that's how.
I use this to this example also. I worked with the different carpet. Obviously, the company had existed for about 150 years. I too got the chance to design and select a carpet with them, and my installation was in check. And then the designs were given to the weavers. We decided to do it instead of the needle, but with the yarn gun. And this is a gun that sort of pierces of the metal canvas fabric and deposits a certain amount of yarn on the other side. That becomes the file of the carpet, the mental carpet. But there is a number of coloring within the design were more than 20, and the embroiderer, the artisan had to change the thread color in that gun a number of times just to do even about 6 inches square. Uh, she wasn't very happy. But because you took the time to sit with them and explain to them and take them through the process, because it's easy for people with some design to kind of imagine things and then give it to an artisan to actually actualize. It already is a conversation. It's already the conversation. Uh, some people see it as resistance. Some people are, I think it's wiser to see it as part of the process because ultimately design happens when you then try something new that hasn't been tried before, that builds on the strength and the vocabulary that have already supported that craft. And that's how growth happens, that's how development happens. So I hope that's answered that.